What's going on, guys? Andrew Rothermel Strength. Have a video for you guys today about Mike Mentzer and what I believe Mike got right with his training philosophy. So, there's a big movement every so often about high intensity interval training and what that means for you and how to adjust your training. And it becomes really popular for a little while, and then it kind of fades off, and after so many years go by, it cycles back through to become something that people are really interested in again. Well, I read Mike's book about his training, and here's my biggest takeaway. Do I think that it's optimal for you or anyone else to train once every 3 weeks or train a body part once every 3 weeks? No, I don't. Do I think that what Mike, the way that he trained is going to be best for everyone? No, I don't, because not everybody can bring that level of intensity that he brought to his training. So the biggest takeaway, and I'll make this short and sweet, get to the point, is the biggest takeaway is that a lot of people aren't training very hard. And I took that as a challenge myself as well. We get so wrapped up, if you have any kind of science inkling in you, in the RPE stuff and things like that, RPE 8 or 9 or 7 or 6, and what we really need to do is push ourselves often. So I think that's what Mike got right. I think Mike got right that you need to bring a level of intensity to your training that pushes you to the max on a regular basis. Do I think that that level of intensity needs to have drop sets and forced reps and long eccentrics and all kinds of intensity techniques? No, I don't. It can be used sometimes, yeah, sure, no problem. I think that's a good idea to occasionally use some intensity techniques that will make your training, a little bit more difficult, force you to go to that place where, you have to really grind. You have to really push yourself to get to the maximum that your body's able to produce, force, strength, muscular endurance. But I don't think that that type of training requires you to necessarily only train once every 3 weeks. But I do think that a lot of people aren't training intense enough. They're comfortable with a 7, 8 RPE, and they're okay with going through the motions and looking at their cell phone constantly in between sets and taking too long of rest periods, and just overall not focusing on the mission when you're in the weight room. If you can put together, depending on the day, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, 45 to 75 minutes of intense, focused work in the gym, 3, 4, maybe even 5 days a week, depending on what you're doing. Again, how you're programming your training. All right, but 3 days a week, 60 minutes of focused training, you can make some serious progress in physique or strength. Again, depending on what your goals are. So the biggest takeaway, like I said, the biggest takeaway that I take away from Mike Mentzer's book and his training style is bringing that level of pain, bringing the intensity of your training up a level compared to maybe what you're used to doing, and maybe you used to train a lot heavier and harder than you've trained in the past, but maybe you've fallen into a little rut where you're kind of going through the motions, and it's just a good reminder that I really do need to kick it up a level to see the results that I want. Your body's not going to change unless you force it to change, unless you make your body change, unless you force the adaptation, unless you make your body want to grow stronger, what's the reason that your body will change? Nothing. There's no reason. All right? So bring that level of intensity, bring that level of pain, push yourself to the maximum, but don't do it on every set, okay? What works for me, what I think has worked for Mike Mentzer in his training philosophy, and that I've adapted to, is getting up to that one, and again, this is something that maybe Dorian Yates used as well, working up to that one heavy, hard, intense set, okay? And again, I'm specifically training for strength, but I think this would work for hypertrophy as well, muscle building. You just take a closer look at what Dorian Yates, because I think he kind of had the best of both worlds, where he did the high intensity interval training, which he had adopted and adapted from Mike Mentzer and made it kind of his own. If you look at Dorian's training, he actually did do a decent amount of volume. Mike Mentzer did according to what he did in his later years anyway, he did very little volume at very high intensity, and that worked for him. But what Dorian did was adopt that training style and method, but then he adapted it to his own liking. And he actually, if you look at his training, what he did on a day-to-day basis, did a lot more volume than Mike Mentzer did. Maybe less volume than typical bodybuilders with the volume training as the main focus. Dorian definitely focused on that intensity factor a lot more, but he still did a lot of exercises, and he still trained I believe it was 4 times a week, every week. So that's a lot more than Mike recommended, which was very infrequent sessions. But he still did work up to that one heavy set where he went all out on an exercise, and then he would move on to another exercise where he did the same thing. All right. So for me personally, with the strength, I'm not doing quite that. I'm somewhere a little bit different, where I'm taking my main exercise for the day, if it's squats, if it's bench press, whatever the case is, and I'm working up to one heavy, intense set. It could be 5 reps, it could be 3 or 2 or 1, whatever the case is, and I'm doing a really difficult set for that rep range that my goal is. And then after that, I'm backing off by about 15 to 20%, and I'm going to do some more volume at a little bit lighter weight. It allows me to push myself for that one set. I know I have one set where I need to be really focused and bring that intensity and push myself, but then I know I'm going to back off, get some high quality volume in with good technique at a little bit lighter weight to continue pushing that volume for me. And then after that, I'll move on to some different exercises that I'll do probably more in a typical, a little bit higher rep range. I'm not going to push the accessory and assistance movements to 3 and 1 rep max efforts, 5, 8, and then as it goes on, maybe like leg extensions or chest flies will be even higher than that, 10, 12, 15 reps. So that's kind of how I've been structuring my training, and also what I think you should take away from Mike Mentzer's HIIT philosophy of strength training and how you can implement it in your own training style. So I think Dorian Yates got it a little bit more correct than Mike Mentzer for hypertrophy and bodybuilding, and I've seen what I'm doing is not unique to me. It's fairly popular in the strength community. So take a look at that. There's lots of guys who do what I do, training style wise, and if that works for you, great. There's lots of training styles out there for you to experiment with and see what works for you and go from there. So Andrew Rothermel Strength, what Mike Mentzer got correct about his training HIIT philosophy. Over and out, guys. Talk to you soon.